and welcome to the Queens of the DMV. I have my co-host here with me today, Cher Castillo.
Hey.
And Arnita Greene.
Hi.
Hey, y'all.
Hey, girly.
Hey, Queen.
Also, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. You can do so by going to Apple. It's also on Spotify. And what's the other one? Forgot.
YouTube.
That's right. YouTube. So today our topic is discussing how to work with contractors. And this is kind of like a sequel to our investor podcast that we did prior to. But now we're going to get down and talk about how to work with contractors. Ladies, this is a very sensitive topic for us because we do have clients that need contractor repairs, different things like that, renovations. What are some things that first of all, what's the first place you look for a contractor? Like, where can you find contractors?
So I always look for contractors based on referrals. I think that's always a great place to start. And, someone that I know, that I trust, that have used them, I've actually seen their work before, because then I know, they've done a great job. I know if they're slow. I know if, they're as nitpicky as I am and that sort of thing. But if I can't find them that way, which sometimes I don't, or maybe they're just booked up and they don't have time to do what I need them to do or what my client needs them to do, then my favorite place is Thumbtack. I actually have found really great contractors on Thumbtack. And I like Thumbtack because it's like you can get on there and you can read the reviews and you can see why people love them or hate them. And I think the contractors on there try really hard to deliver because they know they're being rated and they're being, reviewed, so to speak. So I think those are probably my two ways of finding contractors.
My friend was like, he just pulls up to Home Depot. And I'm like, no, sir, you cannot do that.
No.
You're not contractors outside of Home Depot.
Yeah, no. I'm usually referrals. It's that.
Yeah.
But I like that. I'll definitely try that. Thumbtack?
Thumbtack, it's an app. Yeah, you can pretty much find anything on Thumbtack. I mean, I was specifically like one day looking for somebody to hang artwork, and they had they have people on there for that. They have very specific type of contractors, which I like. If you need somebody to reglaze a tub, that's on there. So they have not just a general contractor that does everything and might hire a subcontractor anyway, because they do general contractors, subcontractors, pool contractors, everyone's pretty much on there. And I like how quickly they respond because they're paying to be on there. So their response time is very fast as well.
Sweet. Mm-hmm. I think it's good to use that too when everybody's busy.
Yeah.
Find somebody. So I really like that. I've written that down.
One thing that kind of, gets me a little uneasy is finding contractors for my customers and maybe they don't quite deliver. Because then I feel like it's my fault, that the contractor didn't work out for them, or maybe the job that they were trying to get done didn't quite get done the way they wanted it to. Or maybe they feel like they paid too much, or pricing as well. That if I refer them, I feel like that it reflects on me. And I've had some contractors flip the script. They do a really good job on, one thing. And I'm like, wow, okay, I'm going to put you on my referral list. Or maybe it's a couple jobs that they do. And then I refer them to somebody else and they're like, oh, they're awful. And I'm like, really? What happened? I do feel like contractors can also get into a groove where they might bang out a couple of really good jobs for good prices. And then maybe they haven't had a job for a long time and now they want to charge a whole lot for this one. So it's just it's for me, and I'm just keeping it honest, the contractor referral situation has been hit or miss just for that reason.
Well, do you know that in the state of Maryland, as a realtor, if you don't refer 3 contractors, and you can get sued essentially as a realtor, and they will win.
You have to refer 3 of anything. It could be lenders, contractors, anything.
Yeah.
It has to be 3. Yeah.
DC is different. You don't have to do that in DC, but Maryland is pretty strict about that, and they have lots of case law around it. So we do have to cross our T's and dot our I's when it comes to referrals. I know for me, like since I flip properties and all of that, I have a Rolodex of contractors, and sometimes I've had contractors for 5+ years, and I think that they're like the most amazing person ever. And then something goes wrong and I can't find them. And, they leave a job, and they've had the track record that they were doing well. And I would hope that means that they would continue to do well, but out of the blue, something happens and they're nowhere to be found.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it is there are things that we do have to deal with, when we're working with contractors, that I have made mistakes myself in the way that I hire a contractor. Like I feel like because sometimes they're referred and because I have seen their work, perhaps like I should have done more due diligence. Like sometimes I see their license number on the contract that I'm signing with them, but then I may forget to look them up in the system. Well, I'll never do that again because I've done that and come to find out the person was licensed 10 years ago, but their license expired and they never had it renewed. So now,
wow.
It's like you really have to do your due diligence. I mean, yes, it's about the way you feel and the work they've done, but are they licensed? Are they bonded? Do they have insurance? Like all things that are really important, because if you are going to go back and sue them for any reason, you can't really sue them unless you have, some grounds to sue them on. And if they don't have any money, then you can sue them all day, but they can't pay you back, Wow. So you have to think about all of that. The biggest thing that I've seen, lately, and I do some project management, when it comes to flipping as well, where I'll have developers or homeowners that want me to, project manage their flips or renovations. And the biggest thing that's coming up is like the scope of work, and that's where you put everything on that's going to be part of the project, from gutting to drywall to plumbing and all of that. But what doesn't happen is change orders. So what will happen is that the owner will get a quote of $100,000, let's say, and things come up along the way. And then they get amnesia. They don't remember that the contractor may have said it's going to be extra $5,000 for plumbing, an extra $2,000 for this. And so now the bill is increased another $10,000, $15,000. And contractors aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is doing change orders. So you have a signed agreement and both the seller and the contractor are on the same page. So within project management, I have been forcing my clients to do change orders because it's really the only way to hold people accountable.
Right.
Because people forget things all the time. It's not even that, they're trying to be evil or it's intentional. It's just that they genuinely forgot. And that's the best way to hold all parties, accountable.
So Cher, does the scope of work change, or you just do a separate sheet of with the change order?
You could do it either way. I mean, generally, I keep the scope of work the same because if you're working with a lender, they don't want you to change up the scope of work. They rather see a change order, so they'll have both things readily available to them. If they go back, they'll look at the scope of work and then they'll see this change order and say, okay, well, we had to knock down this wall and put in new flooring in this room, and that cost another $5,000. And, both parties have signed. Okay. But everybody, when they have a warm and fuzzy feeling about someone, all these signatures go out the window. They're like, oh, but this person's really nice. Like, I really trust him.
That's who you end up in court with.
Exactly. Exactly. So you can't go off of warm and fuzzies. Like you have to have things in writing. You have to make sure that, you know, both parties are on the same page because things change all the time. And it's not even that, you know, a contractor may be trying to be sleazy. It's just that things come up.
Right.
And
even your friends, I've had people say, well, we friends, girl. Listen, we cool, but I'm gonna go ahead and put everything in writing so that we both know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if you're hiring a friend, family member, or whatever the case is, I agree. Everything needs to be detailed. Scope of work, all of that. And no, I can't give you all the money up front either.
Yeah, you pay for what you get, you know, like I have one of my closest friends, you know, I'm handling her mother's renovation project, and I kind of came in at the 15% mark, so to speak. She had already hired a general contractor and kind of did things backwards, you know, didn't have the signed scope of work, didn't have, you know, an agreement in place. So I had to kind of step in and handle all those things for her. But it's hard when you don't start from the beginning the right way, because now the project's already started and now you're asking this person to sign paperwork, and technically they don't have to, you know, they have your money already.
Right.
So, you know, and you wouldn't imagine how many people give tens of thousands of dollars to a contractor and have no signed agreement.
I've heard it. I've heard some bad stories.
Yeah. I'm like, how do you give somebody $40,000 and you don't have their license number, you don't have a signed agreement, you don't have anything. You're just going off of your gut.
Yeah.
And that's a whole disaster. You know, you just can't do that. I mean, we want to trust people, but you really have to do your due diligence so to protect yourself, you know. And even, you know, the thing that really affects us, and I don't know if you ladies do this, but I have started doing this too with when my buyers are purchasing flips, I have actually started looking up permits.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
county, I looked that thing right on up.
Yeah, I didn't traditionally do that, you know, I must admit, but recently there's just been so much, you know, drama with that now I'm like, even though it's not my responsibility, I just don't want to go down that path with a client saying, well, how come you didn't know? Well, I mean, I'm not the contractor, I'm the agent. Like, it's not my responsibility to pull permits. But as an added benefit to them, I've started doing that, you know, just so everyone's on the same page, because crazy things have happened in purchases where you have, you know, permits weren't pulled. I mean, and to the detriment of the buyer most of the time.
Yeah, I've been on both sides of that. So what made me start doing it is the county came and knocked on my buyer's door. And after she bought the house, and fined her for not having permits. Well, she didn't do the work. She just purchased the house.
Right.
And to be completely honest, in a situation where you're on the buy side, the lender also should be requesting that information before the loan is drawn. So if the lender doesn't, you know, request it, then, you know, it's one of those things like, okay, well then it's, you know, it's fine. But then, you know, you're all moved in and the county knocks on your door and wants to do an inspection.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the seller that we bought the house from was very nice about it. He paid the fines and made sure all the work was at that time registered and everything. But it was after the fact. So, you know, there was a lot of things associated. And sometimes the way Charles County works, just because that's where I live, they will tell you to remove everything that's not permitted.
Right.
And what if you have to remove a whole basement? Like, that's not cool. So
you're supposed to have that final inspection.
You're supposed to have an inspection, but let's say you purchase a flip like what we're talking about now, and you renovate a property and you put it back on the market. All of this stuff goes on, and sometimes permits aren't pulled by the contractor.
Because Maryland, you really don't have to pull permits on everything like you do for DC. Isn't that correct?
That's not correct, because in Maryland, you do have to pull permits for electrical. Mm-hmm. You have to pull permits for improving a basement. depending on the level of improvement.
But not
structural.
They're not as stringent as DC. I do know for electrical.
Yeah, they're not as stringent, but best believe if you put some stuff in your house and that needs a permit and you don't get the proper paperwork for it, they will knock on your door and ask to do an inspection. Now you can deny the inspection, they're going to fine you. And then you're going to be required to remove whatever it is that they're saying needs to have a permit.
Right.
Yeah.
So no, they're not. You can get away with it in Maryland more than you can get away with it in DC. But I feel like, as part of working with the contractor, they know what should be pulled for a permit and what doesn't. And that's what some of these homeowners get themselves in trouble with.
Or do they? That's my question. Like, do they really know what they're doing? Half the time, I feel like they don't.
They're cutting it. Some of them are cutting corners.
Yeah.
And then some of them know that they're supposed to have a permit for this particular type of work. Right. Some contractors will turn the work down because they need a permit for it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They don't want to take that extra step to do it. So a part of it, yes, is laziness. And then another part of it is just ignoring it altogether. And then when that buyer or seller goes to sell their property to somebody else, it comes up.
It does. You're right about that. Yep.
First thing, I had somebody finish a garage as a living space. It wasn't permitted.
Yeah.
This was in 92. This is 2020. What are you talking about? Y'all, there was never a permit pulled for this. Are you serious?
Yeah, I had a client who wanted to put their house on the market, and they put a backup generator in there. And when the home inspector came, he said that this should have been permitted. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know it either, So that's when I learned, and they didn't know. So a lot of times people they're not being really. People should ask. That's what they need to do. Doing something like that, but especially electrical, you should ask. Should these things?
But you should always include in your contracts that the contractor is going to pull the permits.
Right.
Some stuff requires drawing. We just did a renovation for a commercial property. We had to get drawings for certain things and have a architect or some type of person who's basically qualified to do drawings and modifications to draw something up. It had to be approved by the county. Then we had to get the contractor to file the actual permit for that work. So it is a process involved, but you do want to make sure that it's done properly so that you don't run into any obstacles later on down the road. You might feel like you're getting away with it at the time or whatever the case is, but it comes back every time at a later date to bite you.
You're right about that. Sooner or later, it will.
Sooner or later. Yeah.
And the other thing is that you can go to different jurisdiction sites and see if there have been complaints made on different contractors. So that will give you some insight on whether or not, this person has 10 complaints. Maybe this is not a good idea. This person has, great reviews and no complaints. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 complaints, not the end of the world, depending on what it looks like. But if you have a lot of complaints and they're all complaining about the same thing, then you need to understand that this may not be the right contractor for you.
Or just look it up. Definitely. We can't
look it up. And then you said something key, I think, early on was talk to their past customers and look at some of their past work. I mean, that'll tell you as well what type of business they're doing.
Yeah. I think the key too is the general contractor is just that, just general. For example, in DC, you don't have to take a test, go to school, nothing. You can just pay to get your general contractor license. Oh. So just think about that. Just think about the fact that you just pay $2,000 and now you're a GC. So tomorrow you guys can see me and I can be a GC. Wow. What does that exactly mean? Now you can hire subcontractors under you. You hire subcontractors that probably know more than you do.
Right.
How are you advising these people that know more than you? Mm-hmm. Or they can know less than you. They may be doing electrical work, but who's really checking for it Like, who is having another electrician come in and check the electrician that's been hired to ensure that they're using the right size wires? If a general contractor in DC does not need to go to school, does not need to have any level of training, like, how do they get away with that?
It's crazy. And and of course we've all heard so many horror stories of people getting ripped off.
Yeah. So, I mean, some questions for our listeners to ask, as they're hiring general contractors, especially in DC, since they don't even need to take an exam or have any specific training, is, are your subcontractors licensed? Do you have a project manager that is checking for this work when you're not there? Because most general contractors aren't there all day. They're popping in and out. The subs are the ones that are there most of the time doing most of the work. The GC is really, like the project manager, so to speak. But if you have no training, like, what are they really doing? So you have to really do your due diligence as the person who's hiring and say, okay, does your subs have licensing? Are they experienced? Or how often are you going to be on site? Are you going to be on site 1 hour a week? Because that does nothing for me.
Right.
Like, I need to know that you're going to be on there all the time.
Can you look up the contractors?
No, that the general contractor is going to be there watching, because how can you ensure that they're doing a good job if you're checking on them once a week?
Wow.
And something that I think I'm going to start doing on my flips, I'm going to start putting a camera in my flips.
Oh yeah, I don't blame you.
Because I want to see that you guys are actually there.
Yeah.
Damn, Sherlock Cher.
Right. I like that.
Sherlock Cher.
But a lot of times I pop up and they're like, I'm out to lunch. I'm like, damn, lunch is 4 hours? Like, what kind of lunch are you at? Or allegedly the infamous, oh, well, we're waiting for the permits. And guess what? The permits haven't even been pulled. Oh, how are you waiting for something hasn't been pulled?
Or I stepped out to get some supplies.
Right.
Right.
You didn't know we were working on this today, and you didn't stop to get the supplies before you came to the job?
Right. No, the newest one is, oh, it's COVID, so the supply chain.
Gosh, you got some good ones there.
Look, I've heard it all.
Like, everybody using COVID as an excuse.
Oh yeah, the supplies are backed up. Like, there's low inventory, all this. I'm like, really? Because I was just at Home Depot and I ordered appliances, so they're not on back orders. So stop lying to me. Like, all these excuses, and I just cannot take it. And you're working in very short time frames where you have to deliver, whether you're using hard money or you're trying to get a house on the market, or you're whatever it is.
Right.
If they're delaying it, you're losing money. You're not progressing. Like, you have to be on top of it. And I will say, like, the best thing that I ever started doing is hiring project managers when I just didn't have the capacity to be there for, my projects. Even though it may cost you another $5,000 to $7,000, it is so worth it. Even if it's a renovation project on your own home, I strongly advise that, because a second set of eyes and ears really ensures that things don't go crazy. Like, that things aren't getting stolen, that things, that people are actually showing up for work because there's accountability there. Like, there's so many benefits to that, hiring somebody to be a second set of eyes and ears probably saves you more money than you think, because you're thinking about it as an expense, but in the long term, it's really saving you.
I've heard so many bad stories about that. Just stealing stuff from the property as it's getting repaired, just running off with the money, just so many things. So yeah, those are all good tips.
It's going to save me.
What'd you say?
What you say, Cher?
Me, the video cam.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because how are you going to steal if you're on video?
Right.
Like, you have to do a lot to steal if you're on video. Like, there's a level of accountability that is unmatched there. So I'll let you know how it works out for me on the next flip.
So, are your contractors, the prices have gone up? Because I just talked to a contractor yesterday and he was just telling us again about, the lumber going up and everything. So everybody's being affected.
Yes, this alleged lumber.
Uh-oh.
No, that's another thing. Like the prices of lumber have skyrocketed.
Mm-hmm. You ain't doing nothing with lumber. You painting the inside of this house.
Yes.
No, I mean, they're doing framing, so I get that. Like you have to frame, but the prices have not gone up that much. Okay, fine if it's gone up a couple $100, but not $10,000 for
now
lumber.
They're using that to their advantage.
Oh, the builders doing that too.
Everything to their advantage. Like they're driving the costs up. Like I'm seeing quotes not only for myself but for my clients, and I'm like, wait, what? A bathroom reno on a like basic bathroom is $10,000.
That's crazy.
Come on, you're talking about a 5x4 bathroom, like with basic Home Depot tile for $10,000. Like, what are they doing in there?
Yeah, that's crazy. It's a no. Mm-mm.
But I mean, that's what you're seeing. So like, how do you adjust to the new state of the market? Because prices are not only going up in terms of listings and sales, but they're going up with the work that you're doing in your homes as well. And the other thing that gets me is, how can you get the same project done in Baltimore for 50% of the price that is 45 minutes away from DC? Is their lumber prices are that drastic different 45 minutes away? Really?
Because they know what you're making off that house in DC.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah. So it's just, I mean, you got to educate yourself. You got to stay on top of it. And if you can't stay on top of it, you got to hire somebody to stay on top of it. So you don't go crazy.
Definitely. What else do we have? So how do you interview the right contractor?
I think it's all about asking them those right questions, like we were talking about, are you licensed? Let me see your past work,
Right.
How long have you been licensed? How long have you been doing this? Because, and not only are you licensed, but do you really truly have experience? Because like we were just talking about DC, you may have been licensed for 20 years as a general contractor, but have you ever touched a hammer?
Right.
The answer could be no. And are you okay with that? Like some people may be like, oh, I'm fine with that. As long as you have strong subcontractors, I'm good. But you should at least do your due diligence. So, that way, 3 months in, you're like, wait, you've never even held a hammer in your hand before, but you're a GC.
Right.
Why did I hire you? Like, then that's your fault because you didn't find out and then you didn't do what you needed to do, to know if this person is the right person for you. And then don't hire somebody that is generally doing, plumbing work to come do drywall. Like I see that all the time.
I was going to say that.
Oh my God.
Trying to save some money, and then you're picking someone who doesn't specialize in that type of reno or that type of repair or fix up.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has a specialty. It's like, are you going to go to a heart doctor to, get plastic surgery? No.
Yeah.
You have to pick somebody that has experience in that specialty. And if you're hiring your plumber to do drywall work, well, you know what? It probably is going to look a little shady. Right. And you have to be okay with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, and if they do mess up or if they're not accountable, what do the consumer do? What do they need to do? Who do they need to call?
Well, generally you're calling the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs. That's what you're doing. Then they're going to start their investigation process and do their due diligence and find out, was a contractor licensed? Did they have an agreement in place? What exactly did the agreement say? All a full-on investigation, and they'll come to an agreement. a lot of times, a big thing that happened, and I learned this the very hard way on the first house I bought when I was doing renovations. My contractor left in the middle of the renovation, but had a ton of subcontractors. So all of a sudden I was getting these, well, I didn't get emails at that time, but, I was getting mail from the different contractors, subcontractors saying they put a mechanic's lien on my property.
No, because he didn't pay them.
Because he didn't pay them. So I paid him $30,000. What did he do with the $30,000? We don't know. Mm-hmm. So now there's a lien on my property. I either pay them or I wait, to sell the house, and I have to pay the lien anyway. So, I mean, you're going to pay one way or the other. if the general contractor is not paying the subcontractors, and a lot of times, general contractors don't really want you in communication with the subcontractors. But
I learned that the hard way.
But it's a good idea to have communication with them because they're doing work on your house and they can put a lien on your property.
Right.
So I have a question. I wonder, because I have heard of a scenario where one of the contractors have changed their name a couple of times.
Happens all the time.
So I wonder if you can pull up their name to find out if, how would that work? I always wanted to know that because I do know one particular person that has changed their name multiple times because they have so many problems.
They changed their names?
You mean their business name, right?
That's the business name.
Okay.
I wonder if you can look them up with their name.
Yeah, you can look. I mean, in most jurisdictions, you can search both ways. You can search by name and by company name.
Okay.
But the way around that is generally when they form a new company, what they do is they put new officers on there, and then they do a joint venture agreement with that LLC or corporation, so their name would not show up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're getting slick.
Yeah, they're getting slick, and they know exactly what to do because if they've been fined or they've lost their license, they know that they're not going to be able to, they're not going to be able to get licensed again. So
exactly.
The way they
or consumers will catch on eventually, and they won't have any business.
Yeah. And consumers are already, for this particular person, consumers are already catching on because they know that they keep changing their name. So it just sucks that they go to the next person, and mess up again. So sad.
Yeah. The other thing to really keep in mind is like how you're paying contractors, because a lot of times, like the infamous thing is we're over budget. We've run out of money. We need more money. And for me, I'm like, that's not my problem. You gave me a price. We're paying you in 3 or 4 draws. I can't help you. If it's an emergency situation and we're all on the same page about it, then yes, we do a change order and, we'll come out of pocket for it. But people who are doing these 50% deposits up front, major red flag, major red flag. No more than a third up front, really a quarter up front is the best way to start.
Okay.
And then that final payment, no matter what they say, how they cry, whatever they do, that last payment is not paid until the final walkthrough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest mistake people make. They hear their contractor, oh, we can't finish the job. Well, then you know what? Don't finish the job.
Yeah.
Don't finish the job because they're going to still want that money. And if they don't finish the job, you still have that money to hire someone else to pay.
Exactly.
Even though it's harder to find somebody, to come into a job after it's been started, but it's protection for yourself. And you really have to protect yourself during this process.
Definitely.
I definitely recommend the pay-as-you-go method, and that's what I do. When I'm working with the contractor, I always, we kind of strategize how the job is going to get done. So if it's a full renovation or if it's in sections. So for example, if you're renovating my kitchen, I'm going to provide and divvy out that job specifically for that, and it's going to be done in sections.
Right.
So, maybe I'm just getting kitchen and 1 bath or something, we scenario wise, but it's pay as you go.
Yeah.
I'm going to pay you a deposit. and I'm going to pay you for materials to complete that job.
Yeah.
I'm only going to pay for labor as you work and go.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
So now I want my scope and I want my actual, contract to be, your estimate to be divvied up between materials and labor. And I'm not going to pay you for all the labor up front. I'm only going to pay you for materials. And as you work, then now the labor will be paid.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how I do mine.
That's a smart way to do it. I mean, not every contractor is going to agree to that way, and
you won't be hired.
Right. But I would say at minimum 3 to 4 draws and not pay until everything's been completed. Because at the end of a project, it's the annoying little stuff at the end that
I got a punch list for you at the end.
Yeah. But that's what they don't want to do. So if you pay them before that final punch list,
they ain't gonna do it.
The likelihood of it getting done is 0.
Yeah, but let's be clear. The punch list is not new stuff. It's stuff that you missed or didn't do that was included in the work.
Agreed.
I didn't have to come in and I'm doing a final walkthrough and you didn't put the sockets on the wall after you painted.
Right.
That's a common thing. The paint job is done. But we talked about replacing all sockets.
Yeah.
Why aren't they on? And those are just, minor things that you catch in a punch out. And the same thing with new construction.
Yeah.
When you're, have a client that's buying a new home and they think the builder is going to remember everything. No, we're still going to get an inspection at the end, and I'm going to show you all the stuff that the builder actually forgot.
Yeah.
So that final walkthrough, most of the time, is never new things. It's stuff that wasn't completed and should have been completed. Definitely.
And I do like about one of my investors. She would do. Final payment wasn't done until after closing.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Why did she get away with that?
No,
because of the home inspection. Because of the home inspection, there were multiple, and maybe because she worked with this particular contract, and it would be multiple punch lists. When y'all said that, it hit a core. I remember. Would be multiple things on the punch list, and she wanted to make sure that they would come out to fix those things for the home inspection.
That's very smart.
Yeah.
Let me see if I could squeeze that one.
Right. That is smart.
Well, my final thing, and as it relates to hiring a contractor, is that, and I know no one wants to spend the money on this, but it would serve you so well, is to hire an attorney to review the contract.
You were right on. Yeah.
Most people don't, and most of the time we're using their contract. Their contract is specific to
cover them.
Caring for them, not the person who is signing the contract on the other side. So, there's always language that can be put in there by your attorney that will protect your interests or protect you getting out of the contract. Because sometimes there's no language in there, that says, okay, if there's negligence, I have a way out of the contract and I don't have to pay you. There's just little things like that. And, $300 an hour for a review, and maybe it's an hour or two review of markup back and forth. Yeah, maybe $600, but $600 in the grand scheme of things to protect yourself is worth every penny.
Yep. I agree.
Definitely.
And that's with all things, for real.
Yeah. Well, I think that's it on how we're going to work with contractors. We pretty much summed it up for the evening. Right, ladies?
I think so.
Well, until next time, this is the Queens of the DMV. Always tune into us every Thursday at 4 p.m. on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. We look forward to seeing you guys sometime soon. Signing off on the Queens of the DMV, I'm Cher Castillo with my co-host, Ariel.
See you later, guys.
And Arnita.
See ya.
Have a great evening.